Welcome to the Peaceful Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Rosensweet, mom of 3 young people, peaceful parenting coach, and your cheerleader and guide on all things parenting. Each week, we'll cover the tools, strategies, and support you need to end the yelling and power struggles and encourage your kids to listen and cooperate so that you can enjoy your family time. I'm happy to say we have a great relationship with our 3 kids. The teen years have been easy and joyful, not because we're special unicorns, but because my kids were raised with peaceful parenting. I've also helped so many parents just like you stop struggling and enjoy their kids again. I'm excited to be here with you today and bring you the insight and information you need to make your parenting journey a little more peaceful. Let's dive into this week's conversation. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Peaceful Parenting Podcast. Today's episode is about why you shouldn't do special time, which is, I admit, a little bit of a provocative hook here. But it's something that Corey brought to my attention that we have been talking about a lot. And then after last week's podcast, we both agreed with the podcast with Joanna and her complex kid, we both agreed we have to talk about this because this is something that probably a lot of parents are feeling a lot of conflict, guilt, and shame around not doing special time or not wanting to do special time or not being able to do special time. Let's take a quick break to hear about our sponsors, and then we will be back with Corey. We've added sponsors to our podcast so we can keep making this podcast and our other free content to support families on their peaceful parenting journey. If you would like to listen to the podcast ad-free, or even if you'd just like to support our work and know you're helping us educate and support the word about peaceful parenting, you can become a supporter on Substack. For the cost of a fancy coffee, you can get the podcast ad-free as well as access to a monthly Ask Me Anything session where I answer your questions and support you. I know there are folks I support on Substack because I believe in the work they're doing and I want to be part of making their work possible and more accessible. I really hope you'll choose to support us. Go to sararosensweet.substack.com or just search up my name and Substack and you'll find it. This podcast is brought to you by the Peaceful Parenting Membership. For a low monthly subscription cost, you get direct access to me twice a week in group coaching drop-in office hours. You also get a library of peaceful parenting lessons, a private community of parents who get it and are on this journey with you, guest expert sessions and monthly trainings on a theme. Plus, you get access to the past 6 years of materials and resources inside the Peaceful Parenting Membership library. But why take my word for it? Here's what one of our members had to say. Sarah, I've been mostly a fly on the wall in your membership group for about 6 months now. I wanted to tell you how much you and the Peaceful Parenting Membership have changed my life. I've gone through every module and have tried to put all of your suggestions into action, and my children are so wonderful to be around, and I'm so much more calm, so much that my new preschool mom friends called me the Zen one. I have never had the tools to control my own frustrations and triggers, and you've given me that. I just wanted to say thank you for all you do. You're making a massively positive difference in this world. To learn more, visit reimaginepeacefulparenting.com/membership. I hope to see you inside the membership. Remember, for an ad-free version of this podcast, become our supporter on Substack. Search up Sarah Rosensweet and Substack, and you'll find us. This podcast is brought to you by Yoto. Yoto is a screen-free audio player that lets your kids listen to audiobooks, music, podcasts, and more without screens and without being connected to the internet. No one listening and no one watching them. They can't go where you don't want them to go in the wild west of the internet, and they aren't watching screens. But they are being entertained or kept company with audio that you can buy from Yoto or create yourself on one of their blank cards. Books, podcasts, stories, or music, it's up to you and your kids. Corey loves the Yoto player and her kids love it even more. I wish it was around when my kids were little. To learn more about the Yoto player, go to reimaginepeacefulparenting.com/Yoto. Remember, for an ad-free version of this podcast, become our supporter on Substack. Search up Sarah Rosensweet and Substack, and you'll find us. Now, our feature presentation. Hey, Corey, welcome back to the podcast. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hi, I'm Corey Everett, and I am a trained peaceful parenting coach, and I work for Sarah. I live in Ontario, but I work with clients all over the world. I'm doing one-on-one coaching, and I myself am complex and have a complex child, and I have 2 kids. I never can remember this, but I've got this. I have a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old.
I'm glad you're not the only one who can't remember their kids' ages. I just have to stop and think. Okay, well, I'm so excited to talk about this. And this is actually something that you and I have talked about over the years because you have found it really difficult to do special time with your complex kid. Maybe just tell us a little bit about, what happened when you tried to do special time and why you eventually sort of gave it up. And this is something that Joanna in the podcast last week, Joanna, the coaching podcast, she was talking about how she didn't wanna do special time with her kid because she was so exhausted. So I think this is sort of like a two-part, like, why sometimes special time doesn't work for the kids and why it doesn't work for the parents. So let's start by talking about what happened when you would try to do special time with Big C, who's your 10-year-old.
Okay. So when I would try and do special time with Big C, I actually found, first of all, I didn't really feel very present in it. I felt like I was trying to do it, but I felt like I didn't have a lot of energy for it. And I think he could feel that.
Mhm.
So I just didn't feel very, engaged in it. And I just felt exhausted and it just felt like another thing on my to-do list. And so therefore he didn't necessarily enjoy it as much either. We did do a podcast that'd be really great. I can put in the show notes where we talked about some things for peaceful parenting that aren't working. And I did a really good description on that one of why special time didn't work for him.
Okay.
Um, and so we can have them listen to that if they want more details on that part. Instead, I think I want to really focus on the why it didn't work for me and why I'm finding with my clients it's not working for them either. And
You
in
know what I
order
think
to
you know what? Sorry to interrupt you. I realize we should really just say what special time is in case, like, it's
yeah,
such a gold standard of peaceful parenting, but there could be some parents listening to this, parents or caregivers who are newer to special time and might not know what it is.
mhm.
So, special time, and there are, I think there are some other, uh, brands of other brands of parenting might have other names for it, but basically it's, the gold standard is 15 minutes a day of one-on-one time with you and your child where you put aside the to-do list, put away your phone, and, some people suggest that you set a timer and you say, "I'm all yours for the next 15 minutes. What do you wanna play?" And it's really that immersing yourself in the child's world, which is one of that's one of the main ideas of special time is that we're immersed in our child's world of often pretend play or some kind of play. It can be roughhousing or it can be playing Lego or dolls or something that is the really child centered and child led. So that is special time. And let's take it from there. Why you had mentioned already that energetically it was really hard for you.
Mhm. I think the best way that I can explain this is if I paint a picture for you of what it looks like to be a parent of a complex kid. And this
And
is
by
both.
complex, now you give a definition of complex. Like this, we gotta make sure we're covering the basics here. What's a complex kid?
Okay, so complex kid. So this term I first heard it from Elaine Taylor Klaus. And we can also put in the show notes when you had her on the
That's
podcast.
right.
She is amazing. And basically, we're just talking, and often we're really talking about neurodivergent kids here.
Mhm.
But it can be more than that. It's just kids often who need more.
It's that 20% of kids that we talk about, like the 80% of kids you say, "Go put your shoes on and wait for me by the door," and they go and do it, and they don't have, like, the extra big feelings, so it can be in my idea of it can be neurodivergent and also could be, really spirited, sensitive, strong-willed, like the kids who are not your sort of average typical kids. And I always say that when I tell people what I do, parenting coach, some people look at me like, "Why would anyone need a parenting coach?" And other people are like, "Oh, I could have used you when my kids were growing up." So really, there are kids who are, well, I'm sure they're wonderful, but they're not as more or complex as some other kids. So, yeah.
Yep. Kids that you almost don't have to be as intentional about your parenting with.
Yeah, you don't have to read parenting books or listening to parenting podcasts. I would hazard a guess that most people who listen to this podcast have complex kids.
Yes, there are people. We always say the people who are our people are the ones who don't have to talk about challenges around putting on shoes.
Yeah, love
That seems
that.
to be the number one thing we're always talking
We
about
always
is
use that as an example, whether it's sensory or strong-willed or attentional Or like it is kind of like one of those like canary in the coal mine
Yes,
things, right? Will your child go and put their shoes on when you ask them to? If the
that's
answer is
so fun.
no, you probably have a complex kid.
Yes. But I love that. It is the canary in the coal mine. So that's what our complex kids are. And so for the parents of these kids, I think of these parents as being absolute rock stars.
Mhm,
They are just trying so hard to peacefully parent their kids. And they're, like we said, they're reading all the books. They're listening to this podcast. They've probably signed up for all sorts of online seminars and courses and just do all of the things. Often these parents were not peacefully parented themselves. Most people weren't.
mhm.
So they're learning a whole new parenting style. And there a lot of people today are getting all their information off of like Instagram and TikTok reels that aren't very nuanced. So they're also not getting like really full information
Right.
and are trying so hard off of all these little sound snippets.
Or the peaceful parenting or gentle parenting, like, advice that they're being given and what's supposed to happen is just doesn't look like that for their kid, and that reminds me, the other podcast that we did about, when peaceful parenting doesn't, quote, "work." We could link to that one too.
Yes. Parents of complex kids are also like trying to problem solve so many challenges because the world is often not designed for their kids and it's often not designed for them. So
Mhm. Can you
we are
say
not
more
just,
about that? Like, more about the not designed for their kids? Like, how does that like, what's an example of how that might show up?
so an example of how that might show up is if we think of just like conventional schooling.
Mhm,
They're expected to go into this like noisy environment and just be able to eat their food that they've been sent and listen all day and stay in their seats and, learn the same way that everyone else is learning. I think I didn't really realize how complex my kid was until I tried to send him to daycare.
I was just thinking about the spirit days at Big C school
Oh,
and
yeah.
how they and I'll just share that you've shared with me that those spirit days like pajama day or everyone wear the school colors day or something that for some more typical kids can be just like exciting and fun and a diversion, and for complex kids that can cause a whole level of stress and the anticipation and the change of routine, and so things like that other parents with of non-complex kids might be like, "Whatever, it's not a big deal." For our complex kids, it throws them for a loop.
Yes, yes. The my first moment of starting to be like, there's something here that I need to pay more attention to was they were having a movie day at Big C's daycare, and they said he kept covering his ears and hiding.
Mhm,
And that was my first idea, but every other kid was so excited that it was movie day. They've been like looking forward to it. And for my child, it was just so loud. And then all of a sudden all the lights were turned off and the whole situation just was throwing him off.
mhm.
And so that's what I mean. We're designing the world for kids who most kids are really excited about movie day or these special event days. That for complex kids, this is a complete change in their routine and all sorts of different sensory things that are happening that can make it really hard for them.
Or that they can't handle as much as other kids. Like, I have a client that was just talking about how she's really realized, for her son who's 9, that they really literally can't do anything after school. Like,
Yeah.
they can't stop at the store and run in and grab a few things. Like, they can't like, they really just have to come straight home and not do anything extra or anything different, and that he just does so much better when he could just come home and unwind and needs that.
Yes, exactly. So, the world wasn't designed for them. And then consequently, the world was often not designed for those parents either.
Mhm,
Because so many of the people we work with, including ourselves, only start to realize how complex we are once we start identifying it in our children.
mhm,
So it's just not really an accommodated world.
right.
Um, so
So
that's a
so talk about how that has led to, sort of led to that burnout for you, and by the way, when you started talking about rock stars, in the membership the other day in office hours, one of our members, I'll call him D, he works incredibly hard and has 2 very complex kids. And he was just sharing how dark and hard life had been feeling for him lately. And I said, honestly, like, I just want to give you a medal. And I grabbed this off my desk and held it up. This, for anyone who's just listening, I'm holding up this silver milagro from Mexico that's a bleeding heart. And this is the closest thing I had to a medal. But like, I really, I just feel like so many parents who have hard kids, and this is a little bit of a sidebar, but so many parents who have hard or more complex kids, all they feel like is that they're doing a bad job, right? But they don't
Yes.
realize that they're up against something that other people just are not up against, right? Like they don't realize that, because that's all they know. I guess unless you have one kid that's not super complex and one that is, you just don't really know that you're working because you're working so hard and things are hard still. It feels like there must be something wrong with you or you must be failing. What they don't realize is that you can, as we said, you can do everything quote right in peaceful parenting and things are still really hard if you've got a complex kid.
Yes. And the one last thing I want to say to help paint this picture is these parents, part of also what they're dealing with, and I actually think this is huge. All parents today have a huge amount of like family admin,
Hmm.
managing appointments and things from the school and all those kinds of things. But that's this other crushing weight, I think, that we're carrying as parents of complex kids is the admin.
Right.
I mean, the amount of communication we have to do with daycare providers and teachers almost every day at point.
Well, and
To
also the searching, like I've watched you go through this and I watched my
Yes,
sister go through this and countless clients, the searching to try to figure out what exactly is going on with my kids so that I can best support them. And even with the privilege that you have and my sister has, in terms of like being able to access specialists and testing and all of that stuff, even with that privilege, it's still like almost a full-time job to
yes.
try to get and then getting the OT or the like all the supports too, right?
Yeah, I started for this podcast, I started listing some of the people that I've had to coordinate with over the years. And I was like, okay, different types of medical doctors, occupational therapists, speak, speech language pathologists, psychologists, social workers, dietitians, like allergists, and just
Mhm.
like so many, so much coordinating and searching and just, and the thing that's also hard about this is you then also have homework from each of these people.
Right.
So not only do you have to like make appointments and get your children to appointments, you then have to often fill out all the paperwork to get reimbursed for it or to get some sort of payment situation with it. Then there's also all the paperwork that they want you to sign just for ongoing parts of that. Then they have homework for the kids that they're supposed to be doing all the time to sort of
Mhm.
help them with whatever's going on. It's endless.
Let's take a quick break to hear about the Yoto player. Yoto is a new sponsor of our podcast. I only promote products that I really believe in, and Yoto is a great product. I wish they were around when my kids were growing up. Yoto is a screen-free audio player for kids. It uses physical cards to play stories, music, podcasts, and other audio content, encouraging independent listening and play. You can buy the cards for your favorite books, from the classics like Charlotte's Web or Roald Dahl, or newer books like Captain Underpants. You can also make your own cards of podcast stories or music from MP3 files. Yoto also creates original content like radio and podcasts for kids. The possibilities for listening are varied and endless. Yoto also features a nightlight, an okay to wait clock, and other functions like white noise and an alarm. It's not connected to the internet, so kids can't go where you don't want them to go, and no one is listening in on them. And did I mention it's screen free? I learned about Yoto from Corey. Here's what she says. The Yoto Player is by far my favorite parenting tool that I've ever purchased, and I recommend them to everyone who has kids. They're an amazing screen-free audiobook player that have been an absolute lifesaver for teaching my kids to play independently. Both my kids carried their Yoto players around the house, listening to books while drawing, doing Lego, and even relaxing in their rooms before bed. We also take Yoto players everywhere with us: short or long car trips, sporting events, restaurants, and even doctor's appointments. On a recent vacation, their Yoto players got them through an 8-hour drive and were used every evening in our hotel to help my kids relax after very busy days. Yoto has an impressive and ever growing collection of books you can buy and have absolutely helped inspire a love of reading in both my kids. Thanks for the firsthand recommendation, Corey. And I also just want to highlight that you don't have to buy their books. You can buy blank cards and record your own content. To learn more, visit reimaginepeacefulparenting.com/Yoto. That's reimaginepeacefulparenting.com/Yoto, YOTO. I hope you check them out, and I'm just so happy to have them on as a sponsor for the podcast. Let's get back to the podcast. Yeah. Well, and then there's just the day to day. Tell us like gives us a little paint a little picture of like the day to day living with not only do we have the, world isn't built for them or for you in a lot of ways, and then all of the extra stuff that goes along with having a complex kid, but then the day to day life, if you just speak to that a little bit.
I think that's the thing that um you just see is so painful to talk about for all the people in our membership and our clients. And I've experienced firsthand is it's just you had children to add love to your family. Sorry.
It's okay.
And then you love them so much. And you're struggling because there's chronic dysregulation and they're having such a hard time getting through, your daily routines. And they need more supervision than the average child does. And there's just getting through the day can be really, really challenging when you have a complex kid. And then if you yourself are complex, your nervous system is getting completely overwhelmed by trying to be the calm for everyone's storm.
Hmm. It's a lot, Corey. I mean,
Yeah.
I understand why you get emotional about it. Um, yeah, it's a lot, and you're still in the thick of it,
Yes.
with two
Yes.
young kids. Yeah, I think everyone on the call, not the call, everyone who's listening to this can relate. So, okay, so how and when did you decide that you were gonna quit special time, and what does that look like? And I just want to center us here that the reason why we do special time is for connection, right?
Yeah.
Like we do special time for connection. Complex kids need connection just as much or more than typical kids. And so just because we're saying, you might want to quit special time, it doesn't mean that we're saying you want to quit connection. So
Yes.
what does that look? What have you found? Because I know you're super connected with your kids. I've seen
Yes.
you together. I know the things that they say to you and about you, and that you guys have an awesome connection. What do you do for connection when special time does not work?
So, a big thing that I've been telling clients and that I've done in my life is, first of all, I had to just acknowledge to myself, it did feel like shame because
Mhm.
here I am. It's one of the first things we tell everyone we work with, like, are you getting one-on-one time doing special time with your child? And then I'm
Right.
sitting there being like, but I don't really do this. I get a ton of one-on-one time with my children, and I think that's the heart of it. But what I realized is because we're carrying all those weights that we talked about, your whole life feels like it's all about this kid.
Mhm.
So then to be like, you know what, let's make it more about you
Mhm.
and give you another 15 minutes, it almost feels like I don't have this in me. So I realized let's pick things that we can do together that is interesting for both them and me. So instead of getting locked in their play and being led by them, I'm finding things that we're co-creating together.
Right. And can I just note too that you've told me, and I know you said you talked about this in another podcast, but I just want to say it again, that a lot of times complex kids play doesn't look like a typical kids play. So you might be like, what do you want to play? And they're like, I don't know. Like they don't have like the same kind of like, okay, let's play store and you be this and I'll be this. Or they play with their toys in a different manner. So it can also be just like awkward to like insist that you play with them when that's not their style anyway. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. And or if I did, or they're always telling me I'm doing everything wrong.
Right. Because I do think that I do think that for most kids, like even though we're saying don't do special time, I do think that for most kids it is important to have that put yourself in their world. And I don't want people to think like, okay, this means that I never have to try to do special time. We're just saying like if it's not working for you for these various reasons, whether it's because of your own constraints like it was for Joanna, or whether it's because it doesn't work for your kid, it doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong and that there's no way to connect and that you should just give up. But I do think that, just as a side note, I'd say the majority of kids, play in their world is the key to a lot of connection. But
Yes.
but not for some complex kids. That just isn't their mode for some of them.
Yeah, because I think we were coming out of special time feeling angry,
Mhm.
right? Because we were coming out of it like, I'm trying to get lost in my child's world, and he's just like, "You're not doing anything right, mommy."
Right.
Like, it was frustrating for him because he got these ideas and he couldn't really get me to do it right.
Mhm.
And I think for some kids, that can be really empowering where they like that feeling of being in control and telling them. But for him, it was frustrating because he was
Right.
like, I had this vision and you are just not executing. I'm like, I don't
Right.
know. I'm trying
Yeah.
to execute your vision. So I think that's why for us, I could just tell it wasn't just me. Like what we neither of us were finding it was working, but
Right.
we were desperately wanting to be together.
Okay, so you
So
said finding right, so I interrupted you when you were talking about finding things that co-interests, things that work for both of you,
yeah.
co-creating.
So when they were younger, one of the big things I did was buy myself really special pencil crayons and nice watercolor paint because both of them love doing art. So I could sit and do art with them and use my fancy coloring books and stuff and feel very like we were together doing something that was making me feel really good, but they also felt really happy and they loved like
Did
showing me what they were making.
did
And
you let them use your stuff? Because I think that would be really hard for me because you can't really be like, "These are my special things, and you use these, Crayola ones," but, like, how did you navigate that?
okay, so that was really hard. This never would work for my husband. So I'm going to acknowledge for some of people this wouldn't work. I let them grab my crayons and they dropped them a lot. I acknowledged that they were not going to last, but I still wanted good ones available to me. So I had
Right.
to so they
You had to
did
be flexible.
definitely, I had to be flexible. So they definitely grabbed them and the watercolors were wrecked really quick.
Okay.
Yeah. But they respected not touching my special brushes for some reason.
Mhm.
So I kept my own special brushes for the painting.
That just totally reminds me, one of our members, she has a just newly 3-year-old who's super complex, and she was talking about how, she was doing a jigsaw puzzle, like a 1,000, like a proper adult 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle,
Yeah.
and that she was really worried that, and it was, like, on the table in a room where the, parents could be, and she was, like, super worried that her kid was just gonna, like, come in and wreck it. And instead, her child is really good at jigsaw puzzles and totally is like doing them with her. So I think sometimes, and she's like, our member is just totally shocked and thrilled that this has become something that, and this is clearly a case of like coming into the adult world of a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. But you just reminded me that she put a post in our Facebook group about how, I don't know, did you see that post?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, about how wonderful it's been to have her just turned 3-year-old do these adult jigsaw puzzles with her. So that's a
Yes.
perfect example of what you're talking about, I think.
I think it's so I love what you're saying here because it's so we're always said like go into their world, but there's something really powerful about letting them into yours.
Mhm.
So I
Love
think
that.
I didn't actually realize that's what I was doing is I've actually keep bringing them into my world with me, and then they feel really special being allowed in there with. And so
Yeah,
it's this like really beautiful thing, but I'm flexible about letting them in there, knowing it's going to look different.
right. What are some other things that you've done, besides art that might be inspiring?
So I realized a long time ago I had to let go of that I needed to read really interesting books to my kids so
Mhm.
that every night we could look forward to reading like beautiful stories that drew me in. And we actually realized bedtime has started getting hard again. And we realized it's because we're in between books.
Okay.
So that is something. And a shout out to my mom. She's really good at researching books. So she's come up with some really cool books that have like really diverse characters and really interesting stories. And so that's been another really important thing is don't just read. I've picked really good books that draw me in.
Mhm.
And so last night we actually just started a favorite series of mine. I kid you not, I'm reading to my 10-year-old a feminist fantasy book that I read when I was a tween. It's called Dealing with Dragons, and he actually is loving it.
Nice. So you're
So
saying maybe you misspoke, you said you had to give up on reading books beautiful books that you liked, but did you mean that you were finding beautiful books that you liked?
Yeah, so yeah, but earlier on, I felt like I was just reading, like, like, kind of like books that I thought they would like.
Oh, okay.
But instead, I was like, "The heck with that," and I found
Uh-huh.
books that I loved, and I started reading those to my kids, and then
Mhm.
they loved them, and then that really got us so excited about bed.
Great, great.
We got through it, and we would read that together, and it became I actually think reading books that I love to my kids has become one of the most important special time that we have each day.
So another co-creating something that's interesting to both of you, and it's not necessarily, going into their world and reading the Captain Underpants or something
Yeah,
that they might like that you find mind-numbingly boring. And maybe
yeah.
Captain Underpants isn't boring. I've never read it, but I'm just using that as an example.
That's a perfect example. So it's like, here I'm providing those books for them to read to themselves for their reading time. Absolutely. Read all the Captain Underpants and Dogman you would like. But
Mhm.
my goodness, when I'm reading to you, I'm picking something. And look, we've abandoned lots of books that we started reading that they couldn't get into.
Mhm.
We just
Keep
closed it.
trying.
Work it and
Yeah.
keep
Okay,
so
what else? What else
next
is
exercise.
okay.
So I've realized exercise for me is the number one way for me to deal with stress. Of all things, I need to exercise to help manage stress, and it's very hard to fit in exercise when you have complex kids.
Mhm.
So from the time they were little, we've been very flexible about how we've done it, but my husband and I have once again started picking things they're naturally into. This is starting to sound really funny, but we just brought them into our exercise with them, and they love it. So from the time they were little, we had a balance bike for my littlest guy. He was on that balance bike and we were riding bikes together.
Mhm.
So my littlest one ended up being able to ride a regular bike before he was 3.
Same with Maxine. Like those balance bikes are amazing. Like she just yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and
And
we could ride.
sometimes you're like, "What have I done?" Like the 3-year-old with, riding off.
It's true. It was unbelievable though. So we just rode our bikes together. From the time ours were very little, we had them as like little guys, like on you could get an attachment to your bike. My husband put them on his road bike with him and would take them for rides on his road bike.
Mhm.
Then we had the balance bike.
There's also the trailer bike too, which we had, which is good. Yeah.
So we did that. We had our youngest on skis when he was 2.
Mhm.
COVID kind of interrupts some of that, but now like we ski every weekend with our kids and we decided to do that instead of putting them into organized sports so that we would all be doing it
Oh, I
together.
love that. Instead of
And
dropping them off and they're playing soccer, you're all doing stuff together. I
yes.
mean, and you could and there and, for other families who are, also you could just go and, kick the ball, or I always say, chase your kids around the playground if you feel like you don't have time to exercise, but you need to like, it can be that simple, right?
Yes.
Kicking the ball around, chasing them around the playground, get some exercise, and have some connection time too.
Yeah, we started one of the ways we got our one son kind of good at running is taking the kite to the park and we just like
Mm,
ran around with the kite.
nice. Yeah.
So, but we started even doing where we'd go to, and I advised another family to do this, going to a track together because it's a contained area where everyone could run at different speeds.
Mhm.
And the really little ones were playing on the inside of the
Mm,
track with soccer balls and things like that. And then everyone else could be running around the track.
love it.
So getting really creative about literally bringing them into our world of things
Mhm.
that we love and then connecting deeply. And it's sort of one of those things where it's an investment that you make over time. And it starts small and you have to be really flexible and there's these little hands grabbing all your fancy pencil crayons and you're having to deal with it. And then one day you're sitting beside them and they're using them themselves drawing works of art.
Yeah, yeah.
No, and it's happening now where my older son and I have been going for runs together around the neighborhood and we have the best talks ever because I'm sideways listening. We
Mhm.
should talk about sideways listening actually because
Okay.
that's so I learned about this from you. You have a great article. I recommend it to everyone. It's called Staying Close to Your Tweens and Teens. And that's where you talk about how it's actually easier for people, I think, to have important conversations when you're side to side because it's not
Mhm.
that intensity of like looking in each other's faces. This is extra true for neurodivergent people who sometimes have a hard time with eye contact and talking in that way. Um, so we go for these runs together all around our neighborhood, and I hear everything from my son during that time.
Mhm.
because we're side by side. So it's become special time where it started where I taught him to come into my world with the track running and all the different things. And now that we're running, he's bringing me into his world.
Love it. Do you find that, a lot of complex kids have special interests. Do you find that there's a way that you can connect with them over their special interest? Does that feel connecting to you if it's not something like I'm literally just curious about that.
So I think that can be tricky, but I do think it's very important.
Mhm.
So I've learned that I was having a hard time with how much my kids love video games because I've never liked video games. And, as someone with ADHD, it's so hard to focus on things that I don't find interesting.
Mhm.
And I realized that I've spent all this time cultivating, bringing them into my world, and we've gotten to such beautiful connected space that I do need to go into theirs. And now that they're older, I'm finding it is easier to go into their world. So because we're not trying to make some sort of play thing happen that wasn't natural.
Right.
So I have been making a point now of I sat down and been like, show me how to play. I'm a beginner. Teach me how to do this. And I've been playing video games with them. I'm so bad.
In our podcast with Scott Novus about how to stop fighting with your kids about video games, he says how good it is for kids to see you be bad at something.
They're seeing it.
Yeah, I love that.
I'm so bad. And they like I cannot even a little bit. So they find it very funny. So I've been playing it with them and letting them talk to me about it. And I found that that's been really important too, because they keep on saying, do you see why we love this so much?
Mhm,
And I'm
mhm.
kind of like, yes. Like, and I see what skills you're learning now that I've tried it. Like, it takes so much skill and practice to be good at these complex video games on the Switch
Yeah,
and on the PlayStation. So I am learning a lot. And I feel like we are shifting now where I found a way to connect with them by bringing them along with what I was into. And now that they're older, we are switching where I'm able to go back into their world.
right, love it. So we also, I think delighting is something that probably you still do, and we always talk about that as the low-hanging fruit if you can't do, connection if you can't do special time or it doesn't work for you, delighting in your child throughout the day, letting the love that you feel in your heart show on your face, right? And
Yes.
then finally, you talked about using routine, the things that you do throughout the day as connection. Can you talk about that a little bit before we go?
Yes. So this is where long-term listeners of our podcast know that although special time is a big fail for I'm really good at being silly with my kid. Really good at being silly, and I'm very inspired listening to Mia from Playful Heart Parenting talk. She is I think I told you, listening to her talk, it was like the first time I heard someone talking about exactly how I do playful parenting.
Mhm.
And it's just injecting play and silliness and drama throughout your like everyday things you're doing together. And so we do that all the time to get through the schedule, especially now my 10-year-old is starting to act a little too cool for some of this, but it's still really, really happening with my 7-year-old where we're always like singing weird songs about what we're doing. And I'll take on weird accents and be my characters. I'm not going to demonstrate them here. It's far too embarrassing. But I still do have my long running characters. I can't get over, like, I still
You
have
got, like, the dental hygienist, what's her name?
Karen.
Karen, the dental hygienist, what's the bus driver's
I
name?
have Brett, the bus driver. We have Deep Breath, who's like a yogi who, like, comes in when everyone needs to take deep breath. Um, her name's So. I'm not sure why So, but So is the dresser who's really serious and doesn't know how to smile.
Okay.
So if my kids ever need help, this has also been a big way that I delight in them, I think, is if they ever need help getting dressed, which complex kids need help getting dressed for a long
And
time.
even body doubling when they don't need help getting dressed, right?
Yes. So I would always pretend to be a dresser who was sent in to like get them dressed in their clothes and I
Right.
didn't know how to smile. So they're always trying to teach me how to smile while I'm like keeping a serious space. And actually recently I was doing this and I was having such a hard time not laughing that my lips started visibly quivering, trying not to smile and laugh.
I
So
love
I
that.
think it was the hardest I've ever seen my 7-year-old laugh.
Oh
He
my
just
gosh.
was like on the floor laughing because I was like,
And for anyone who this sounds hard for, just, it takes practice and I think anyone can learn to be playful, and I love Mia's account, we'll link to that in the show notes. But I love me as account for ideas just to get you started because I know you're a drama kid. I'm not, but I still found ways to get playful even though it's not my natural instinct. And so you can just this way of getting playful and connecting through the day and through your daily routine, you can you can do that. It'll take maybe a little practice. You might feel funny at first, but I think it's possible for everyone to do that. So thank you so much. We have to wrap up, but I also want to point out that anyone who wants to connect with you, reach out to us. Corey's available for coaching. She's a wonderful coach. And I have people who specifically ask for Corey because they can relate to Corey's experience as a parent of complex kids. And so on our website, reimaginepeacefulparenting.com, there is a booking link for a free short consult or for a coaching session. We'll also put that in the show notes. So if you want some more support, please reach out to us. Either of us are here and want to help you. And Corey, thank you for your honesty and vulnerability about being a parent of a complex kid and sharing how you can do that connection, even if it feels like, special time is just too hard and something that doesn't work for you or for your kid. And thanks to Joanna for also inspiring us to get this out there to you all. Corey, before I let you go, I'm going to ask the question I ask all my guests, which is, what would you tell if you had a time machine and you could go back in time, what would you tell your younger parent self
Okay.
about parenting? What do you wish you knew?
I think what I wish I knew, I think this is easier than I thought it would be because I just told my best friend who just had a baby this. And it's trust your intuition and your instinct. I think I spent so much time looking for answers outside of myself, and I could feel they weren't right for my kid or for me, but I was so confused because other people were telling me this is what you should be doing. And the more I've learned to trust my gut instinct and just connect deeply, and this special time example is perfect. I knew it wasn't working for us, and I intuitively knew other ways to do it. And
Hmm.
I wish I could have just trusted that earlier.
And stop doing it sooner and just gone
Yeah.
with the other connection ideas.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Corey. This has been so great. And as again, we'll put the link to anyone who wants to book a free short consult or coaching session, and also to our membership, which you've heard us mention a few times, which is just a wonderful space on the internet for people who want some community and support with their complex kid. Thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. I hope you found this conversation insightful and exactly what you needed in this moment. Be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Remember that I'm rooting for you. I see you out there showing up for your kids and doing the best you can. Sending hugs over the airwaves today. Hang in there. You've got this.